Hedera is shaping up to be one of the best choices to be buying into this cycle. And the main thing about HBAR is that we've been talking about this one for quite some time on this channel. If you guys do know, at this point, you could technically call me a Hedera maxi, but because of, what we've been seeing around Hedera, for the last 4 years, I mean, listen, this is a project that I think everyone will soon look at and say, it was so obvious that this was going to be a top 10 or even a top 5 cryptocurrency. And the reason why I say that you could technically call me a Hedera maxi is because, like I said, I have been talking about this project for 4 years. It's a project that I personally see being at the top of the list for the altcoin market. And it's also a project that I see being a very large performer this cycle as well. I mean, in the last year, we're still up over 300 and almost 20%. And that's because when we think about what Hedera has been doing since the bear market, they have been constantly building, expanding, and making a ton of noise. And for those that keep commenting under the HBAR videos, no, I'm not paid to talk about HBAR. I don't have any contact with the Hedera team at all. This is just one of those projects that I see being a very big success, especially with how much noise they've been making, all of the connections, the partnerships, the expansions that have happened in just the last, 7 months. I mean, 2025 has been an incredible year for Hedera, and we're 7 months in. But let's actually talk about a few things. Number one, let's take a quick look at the price chart. So I'm only using CoinMarketCap for this because obviously by the time that this video does go live, we might see a little bit more price action. But regardless of that, the main thing that I'm actually looking at here is major candle closes over this 28-cent target that we do have on the board. After that, after we get this big push above the February and March highs of this year, the main focus here is 40 cents. Having that big break above the January highs. After 40 cents, and if we zoom out, after 40 cents, we look at those highs back in 2021. The all-time high is 57 cents. So the upside potential just from our current level here is still very good. But remember, the most violent moves on altcoin charts actually happen once we go into price discovery. So after we break over those 2021 highs, that's when Hedera gets extremely violent in terms of price action. And that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking for as well. Now, when it comes to this, let's take a quick look at the factors that are actually allowing Hedera to be this very bullish altcoin and this project that I've been focused on for 4 years, and why I've been focused on it for 4 years. Let's start off with a few things. Number one, the DeFi market. So the DeFi market for Hedera recently became a thing. In fact, we watched it become a thing back in 2022. 2022 was the big year, and it wasn't even, by the way, a full year in 2022. It was August. This is when SaucerSwap launched, the first DEX on Hedera. It launched and TVL quickly grew. In fact, we hit a high back in 2024, about $150 million. Then we hit another high towards the end of 2024 at about $211 million. And then at the middle of January of this year, we hit another high, and this was around like $213 million. We are currently trading at about $147 million. This has been rising steadily over the last couple weeks, especially considering the fact that, HBAR is starting to pump. This is where we currently are on this chart. Now, also, we've been focused on stablecoins because the stablecoin market cap for HBAR is also up about 8.36%, sitting at about $209 million. This is also because with stablecoins, you're tapping into the DeFi pools and things like that, which is also why we were starting to see, SaucerSwap, aka the DEX, really waking up in a big way. We also see a few other DeFi protocols on Hedera waking up in a big way as well. And this is very, very exciting to see. Now, in terms of some of these protocols, right? For an example, SaucerSwap, right? This has $80 million tied to the DEX in just TVL alone. Now, I do think that DeFi Llama is a little bit behind, because if we actually go over to SushiSwap's website, we could see that TVL is sitting at about roughly $108 million. I'm not too sure if this is incorrect or if DeFi Llama is incorrect, but I'm pretty sure it's DeFi Llama that's incorrect here. But what's crazy about SushiSwap is that they recently just celebrated $4 billion in terms of all-time high total trade volume. This was on the 21st. Okay, so we're about 1 week out from this announcement, and already $120+ million was traded on the DEX in just 1 week. So we're starting to see more and more trades happening on the DEX. We're starting to see a lot more people tapping into the DeFi side of Hedera as well. And this is very, very good to see. And by the way, we already know that there's a lot more DeFi protocols to be added to the Hedera ecosystem, especially from a lot of the accelerator programs. Even Thrive is starting to do some pretty cool things with DeFi protocols too. So I'm very excited to see where the TVL on Hedera really kind of goes from here. I do think that this is a huge market, and on Hedera, it's a market that can thrive in a big way, which we'll talk about here in a second as well. But also, just over the last 30 days, I mean, let's take a quick look at the Hedera ecosystem here. Big shout out to HBAR Tata for this. You know, HBAR is up over 100+%. Gib, which is a meme coin on Hedera, up over 300+%. And a few of these other coins, including Sauce, which is SushiSwap's token, even Bonzo Finance. I mean, these are all up in a huge way. The ecosystem has been on fire. The ecosystem has been expanding and becoming a huge, huge part of crypto for a while now, that a lot of people just continue to overlook and even ignore. This is where we really start to see Hedera's name become a very, very big piece of crypto. I think a lot of eyes are opening up to how big Hedera will soon be. I mean, the ecosystem and the community has been growing so much over the last, like, I want to say just a couple months. I think that 2025 has been a tremendous so far year for Hedera, and I think that's only going to get much bigger as we do get towards the end of the year as well. And this is why I keep saying that Hedera is starting to make a huge name for themselves. And wait until people realize the power of the technology that Hedera has to offer. Back in 2021, the biggest thing that I started to talk about with HBAR was the tech side, right? So HBAR is utilized for not just fuel, but also for network protection. This is through those staked nodes. And in terms of how much HBAR is utilized here, it's extremely strong, right? This is why I keep saying that HBAR is definitely one of those unique tokens that has so much utility behind it just for the network alone, not even talking about all of the use cases and things like that for HBAR. But the network itself is fully powered by HBAR. But on top of that, the biggest thing that I talked about in 2021 was the comparison. Okay, everyone right now is still talking about Ethereum, and it's because Ethereum is, leading the charge right now. Phase 2 is here. It's the Ethereum side of the cycle, and then altcoins are next, right? But the main thing that I want everyone to understand is the time that we're kind of headed into, right? The time that we're headed into around crypto is the time where enterprises and institutional players are starting to scale their use cases. And this is a very interesting time. Why? Well, because as they start to scale, they're going to run into problems. For an example, Ethereum, even with all of the upgrades, 30 TPS, 30 transactions per second only goes so far. When an enterprise and institutional player wants to scale, transactions to billions of transactions, a day or maybe a week or even a month, they are not going to utilize Ethereum, especially with the cost, okay? The cost, the transaction confirmation, the energy consumption, the transactions per second, all of this becomes a bottleneck for these big players. And this is something that I even talked about back in 2021 as well, because we knew that we were going to start getting into the phase where institutional players and enterprise players were going to scale their use cases, and they were going to choose the most efficient networks. With Hedera, you are throttled at 10,000 TPS, which means, technically speaking, Hedera has unlimited scalability. They even mentioned that down here, right? The transactions are throttled at TPS and will increase in the future. They have this mechanism, which is called sharding. It's to enable unlimited TPS. Now, also with this, it's at a fraction of a penny, and you have 3 to 7 second finality. Okay, this is where we start to see the benefits of this third generation technology really shining above the second and the first generation technologies, aka Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we've heard this many times over in the past as well. And even more recently, we heard from Lehman Baird, and this is on Thinking Crypto One's podcast, Tony Edward, Hedera's Lehman Baird on HBAR's advantage over the other crypto networks and the importance of a strict token supply. There is no inflation, there is no deflation, it's predictable. Listen closely to this.
Programmers who do governance, I'll kind of trust them. Maybe I'll even trust a ledger that has lots of nodes, half of which are on Amazon. So Amazon Corporation, controls half the network. I'll just trust it. Okay, well, that's fine. But what would be better is if you have what we're providing. We're really trying to make something that could be trusted for the next 100 years. And so I don't see people doing that yet. And I think maybe more people will over time, but I think it's important. I think that it matters. It's not enough to have a lot of nodes. They actually have to be on different, companies. And it's not enough to say anybody can vote and govern if it just ends up being a handful of people that actually end up doing so. You really need the transparency. You need to have some of these rules in place that prevent excessive consolidation of power, to prevent it from becoming centralized. There's lots of forces in the world that move things towards centralization. And that's why we've baked in the decentralization of control, of governance from the very beginning. I think that's important. And maybe we'll see other ledgers in the future that do the same thing.
Yeah, I think you guys are certainly ahead of the curve there. And that's why I wanted to ask that question. If you had your sights on anybody who may be trying to emulate what you guys are doing, but I haven't seen anything like that. Talk to us about the tokenomics, the max supply, in addition to the transactions how many transactions per second you handle. And also, I believe there was proof of stake added, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us about that, if you can.
Yes. So the supply of HBARs, that's the cryptocurrency you have to use to do a transaction, is fixed at 50 billion. It will never change. There is no inflation. There is no deflation. It is predictable. This was a plan from the very beginning, and it is baked into the DNA of the system. You have a fixed supply, and you can rely on that.
So yeah, listen, when we think about all of these factors, this is what makes Hedera completely different than all of these other technologies. And you might be questioning, well, Nick, if Hedera is so efficient, why haven't we, witnessed all of these big players moving from Ethereum to Hedera? Well, they're going to be the last ones, right? Like, a lot of these big players are going to be the last ones because right now they're just trialing the tech. But we've already witnessed a lot of projects migrating over to Hedera. For an example, Suku was one that we talked about back in 2021. They first migrated over to Hedera from Ethereum. Bank Social also moved over from, Ethereum and even Binance Chain to Hedera. That happened back in 2024. Bitcarbon or Diamond Standard, they also came over to Hedera, from Ethereum in April of 2023. Then also Mint, this was back in 2023 as well, Ethereum to Hedera. Then Rare Sneaker App switched from Ethereum to Hedera. Crypto Task also came over to Hedera from Ethereum. And then, Hashport as well. Hashport is the supporting factor behind all of this, which enables, secure transfers of ERC20 and other assets between Ethereum, Polygon, and even Hedera. They facilitated many token and project migrations since 2022 and 2023. And then we could see the full timeline here and all of the big players as well that kind of moved over. Now, on top of that, we also have all of these other ones. Prove AI came over from Casper, which is also Ethereum. And this one is not really one that I would like to mention simply because, they haven't really provided much, but all of the other ones are great. And some of these were Solana based, Ethereum based. There's even one over here that really kind of gives us a little bit of a breakdown on some of the other ones, like Clout.art came over from Polygon. When we think about these projects, even Fresh Supply Co. migrated from MasterCard Provenance. It's not just the fact that Hedera is taking away Ethereum dominance, Hedera is taking away dominance from other networks as well. And this is only going to continue to happen because Hedera and what Hedera has to offer in terms of the tech, it's so efficient. This is why Hedera is set to absolutely dominate going forward. And I do think that HBAR is going to be one of the largest cryptocurrency projects in this space as well. It's going to be a top 10 or even a top 5 giant. And a lot of people will continue to say, no way, it's not going to happen. But you know, I've seen Hedera prove so many people wrong over the last couple of years, and I think that's only going to continue to do so. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely will like, subscribe, notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, thanks for watching. Peace out.